something. Hold on. Okay. If you go to your, yeah. Oh, there you go. Okay, perfect. Go to sound. Well, that's not where you want to go. That's, are you on a Mac? Is that a Mac? I can't hear her. If you right click on the bottom of your desktop, there's like a speaker. And then if you go to open sound settings, and then under sound settings, if you go to choose your output, your input device, and then when you click that, there's something that says device properties. You can change the volume by right where you are there. Okay, that's speakers. You don't want speakers. You want input. Go on the top. Go on the top where it says input. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you're on the lowest volume. So.
Oh my gosh.
There you go. Now we can hear you.
Yay.
Okay. That's what was doing it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, you can make it a little louder still. Make it just a little louder. To input. Input, yeah. Right there. Input.
Reason,
not output, input.
Right. I know. If you're real quick.
And on the bottom, the very bottom, where it says output volume. Output volume, right? Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Perfect. Now you're loud enough. Good. That's the input volume. Perfect.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yay.
That was all you needed. It was just a tweak.
Thank you so much.
That's okay. I don't know everything. I know a little about computers. I don't know everything, but I know a few things.
I think that's pretty good.
Okay. Well, that worked. So that's what matters. It solved the problem, and that's all we wanted to do. So we're gonna. I think we usually start around 1:45. I tell people to come 5:30 because often there's technical glitches. Somebody can't get on, or the speaker doesn't work, or the microphone. But we usually start around 1:45. I'm just gonna get some water while we're waiting, and I'll be right back.
We'll have to work out the technical glitches. You guys can see my screen.
Hi, Rick. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good.
Ann Moss is our speaker.
And your volume seems to have dwindled down a little bit again. Now we can't hear you. I can see you talking.
All right.
There.
Okay. It keeps wandering down for some reason. It won't stick there, so I'll just keep sliding it up.
Okay.
I'm just going to have to hold it there.
Yeah, there we go. I'm back. So if you see some people you don't know tonight, it's because I've invited a lot of guests. I don't know who's going to come, but several people said they might. I'm trying to help us grow our club and get new people, and I'd like to encourage our other members to do the same, to tell people you know about the club. And what's unique about it? I mean, unlike most Rotary clubs, we meet online, which is really quite nice. So a lot of people don't join because they can't commit to a weekly meeting. They don't know where they're going to be. That's one reason we don't have that problem. You can be on your phone or a laptop or an iPad, and if you can't make it, you can watch a video, which other clubs don't have. And another thing is it's less expensive. A lot of clubs, like, they have a meal, and it can add up. I mean, like downtown, the meal's like $25, $45. You're paying like $200 a month for a meal, and with our club, you don't have that expense. You don't have much expense at all, other than the annual dues. And we recommend everyone donate to Paul Harris. I hope everyone has done that.
To the foundation.
Yeah, the Paul Harris Foundation, not
No.
Paul Harris.
No, it's just the Rotary Foundation.
Okay. Oh, okay. But it's the Paul Harris Fund.
Well, that's if you give a Paul Harris fellowship.
Oh, okay.
But it all goes into the Paul Harris, into the foundation.
Oh.
And from there, that's where all of our money goes for projects.
Okay, I didn't know that. I went on auto pay, so I don't have to bother with it. Once a year, they take it out, and it's taken. And I recommend that. That's a good way to do it. So you have to. I know Rick saw that too. We both went to Rotary University, and
I do mine on a monthly basis.
hey, whatever works. Whatever works. I like to get it out of the way, so it works. And that's it. Other than that, we really don't have a lot of expense. A lot of clubs are much more expensive, which is fine. It works for them, but our members don't have that, and I think that's a nice part of the club, that it gives you a chance to meet with good people and be part of Rotary. And one of the things I like is you can go to any Rotary group in the world as a member of any club. So once you belong to our club, you might say, well, I have a club in my area. Well, they didn't invite you. So it's a little harder to get in. But if you're a member of our club, you could just go there as a guest. And as a speaker, I think, Ann, you're a professional speaker, right?
Yes.
One of the things I'm doing is I do a lot. I'm probably doing about 40 or 50 Rotary presentations a year. And the way I do it is there's a thing called, there's you go into Rotary International, and you put down where you are, and it'll show you the name of a club nearby, and you find out what district it is. And when you know the district, you go to Club Runner, and then you could send an email to the presidents of all the clubs in that area that you're available as a speaker. And a lot of them, they're looking for speakers. They have to have, I would say, about 40 to 45 speakers a year. We have other things going on, some business meetings and parties and such, but for the most part, most clubs are doing 40, 50 bookings a year. Well, if you got 60 clubs doing 40 bookings a year, you got a pretty good shot as a speaker of going there. I actually go pretty far. I just did one in Houston. That's a 5-hour drive. But
You drive slow.
I drive. Well, you live closer. Remember, I'm in McKinney. It takes me an hour to get to Dallas.
Oh, okay.
And so it's an extra hour from where I live, and I do stop a lot. I stop about 2 or 3 times, but it's still, I don't care. I mean, I enjoyed it. I went down there, I spoke, I made some good contacts, and I came home, and I do that a lot. And then I looked like in my map, and I saw there are other areas that are part of this district, like Fort Worth. It's a different district, but it's drivable, so I contact them. And so as a speaker, it's a very good way to make contacts, meet people. Let's say, Ann, you're in another city, and you go in a day or two early, which is not uncommon for a speaker. You do a PR thing, you do some shows, and you do interviews. Well, one of the things you could do is let the local Rotary Club know you're there and go to the meeting. And there's a lot of the business leaders and the people who run that area are in the club, and they can get the word out. So it's just, I think it's great. From a business side, it's good. From a charitable side, it's also very good, because they do good things. They help fight. They're helping to get rid of polio. They do water wells in poor countries, so girls don't have to go 6 hours looking for water and get raped doing it, which is what was happening. They would go 5-6 hours a day to the local water hole, which was a dozen miles from their homes, and carry the heavy water back to their homes, and then they knew where the girls were, and they raped them. Now they build wells and they build schools. So the well's by the school. So the girls go to school now, and they're getting educated. And after school, there's a well. They take the water home, and it's safer. They have the water, and they're also getting educated. That's just an example of some of the things Rotary does. So from a charity side, I think, Linda, we're like a 5-star charity. Is that what, 4-star, 5-star? What is? Linda knows
we
everything.
are on Navigator, Charity Navigator.
We have we're like in the top 1% of charities that for every dollar they take in, it's like 96 cents goes to help people, not to the people running the organization. They actually use the money for what it's supposed to be for, to help people. So it's got a very, very high rating. So I feel comfortable, doing that. And then it's from a professional side, it started off as a networking group many years ago. It's not primarily a networking group anymore, but people do network. And then you meet people who are very old. I mean, there's a lot of people retired, and they make Rotary part of their retirement to
Okay,
serve.
now Howard, quit talking about me.
Oh, I wasn't speaking about. I was actually thinking. I was at what was it? There's a garden club in Fort Worth, and I went to speak there. And the guy next to me was 93, and the guy next to him was 94, and the guy next to him was 95. And they've been in Rotary like 50 years. And I was like, whatever's in the water at this club, I want some. I just turned 69 today. Today's my birthday. And I'm like, I'm the kid at this table. You know, everyone is in the mid-90s, and I'm 69. I'm thinking, I'm like a child next to these people. You know?
Oh, by the way, David and I went by the Boys and Girls Club in Grand Prairie and took them a whole bunch of dry erase markers that we had got and made a donation to the Lighthouse for the Blind.
Oh,
They make them there, so I bought 196 of them. I also bought Crayolas, notebooks, glue sticks, pencil sharpeners for pencils and for Crayolas. And so she was very happy to get the dry erase. She was having to ration out the dry erase. She had one on her desk, and as people took one, she had them sign it out. So this will last her maybe through the year.
nice, nice. And of course, we do an annual event there, which is Halloween. And these are usually kids that they don't come from the wealthiest families. So if we weren't there, they would have very little happening on Halloween. We bring candy and crayons, like Linda said, and they have fun. And I've been doing it for about 3 years now, I think. And
Yeah, I
do
think
it
so.
This year too. I'll be back.
Okay, also, are you going to be the host? Down here on the bottom, it says you can claim host.
I don't see it. How do I do that?
I don't know. I see it on the right hand under participants.
I don't see it.
Across the very bottom where it says invite participants, share.
I don't see it.
Pull your screen up a little bit.
Hold on. Let
It's
me
down to the very bottom.
Invite participants. Screen share. Should I do screen share?
No, go hit on participants.
Okay. Okay. What do I do now?
And then over to the
Oh,
right,
claim host.
you claim it.
Okay, I gotta write the host key.
Right. And then you start the recording and then you ring the bell.
Okay, I gotta get the host key off my sheet.
Okay,
here.
and it's time to start.
Hold on. I know. I'm looking for my host key though. I gotta find it.
On mine is the bottom right, far to the right, underneath
No,
participants.
that's not the problem. I need the key. There's a key you have to put in that
No.
shows that I'm the host.
Oh, and then right next to chat is the record button.
I can't press it unless I'm the host.
Request permission from the recording meeting host. Okay,
I can't make myself the host unless I have the. It's a 6-digit key. I don't have the key.
okay. I'm gonna go ahead and record it then.
Okay, you can start recording it then. That's fine. And then we'll start our meeting. Tell me when you started it.
Right, I'm gonna start it right now.
Okay.
Can you see what's going on with the feed?
Oh, wait a minute, because I have to request permission from the host.
Okay. I'll give you a second. This is why we come early, Ann.
I don't have a 6-digit.
Feedback
All right.
because-
Well, I'm recording it on my Camtasia. Just so
Okay,
you
do
know.
that.
I am recording it, just so you
Okay.
know. As a
There's a
backup.
lot of feedback.
Yeah. Somebody's speaker is too loud.
Might be yours, Howard.
Okay. Well, I'm going to open the meeting today. I know the day, July 31st, 2018. Welcome to the E-Club of the North Texas Rotary. Thank you all for coming today. We have a great speaker. And we'll begin with the invocation. Usually Rick does our invocation, so I'll ask if he would like to do it.
I'll be glad to do it. As we pray, Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the rain we've had. Thank you for the many blessings that we have and our talents that we can use those as Rotary provides a platform. Thank you for the leaders we have. We are in our first month of new leadership in our club and Rotary International. We thank you for your guidance for these wonderful people that volunteer their time to lead us. And we thank you for the capabilities that we have through Rotary to reach out and help others in the world. May we continue to do so, and thank you for all of these blessings we lift up to you. Amen.
Thank you. David, did you want to do the pledge? Oh, that's nice. Okay, that works. Did David hear me, Linda?
Hold on, working on it.
He's,
There we go.
okay.
Okay, pretend I'm standing up and looking at the flag.
Okay.
I promise
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you,
we're
David.
getting feedback because you're not muted.
Who's not muted? Me?
Well, Rick is not muted. I'm getting ready to mute again, and Charlotte's muted.
Charlotte's muted. Anne's got to be unmuted because she's the speaker. Okay, so right now, let me put my headset on. I'll see if that helps. If it's me, that'll eliminate it, just to be safe.
Rick, can you mute yours?
Okay, did that help? No, I'm still hearing it a little bit. Okay. First question is there any new business that anyone wants to bring up today for the club? Is there anything that we need to know? Linda's usually our conduit to these things. Is there anything we need to know, Linda, about things we need to be doing for the district or for the Rotary International? Is there anything going on that we need to know about? Linda, you're muted. You have to unmute yourself to talk.
I don't have anything at this time,
Okay, that helps.
but there is some sound in the background of somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's yours or,
I have a headset on, so it can't be me. It might be Ann. Ann, do you have a headset or earbuds by any chance?
Let's see. I got earbuds.
That might help. It's not unusual for the sound to go from the speakers right to the microphone, and it causes feedback.
All right, let me try these.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll give it a second. She hasn't done a webinar before, so this is her first one. And I've invited a lot of speakers to come and speak to our club, so I'm hoping we'll
Can
get
you hear me?
a lot. Yes, I think that
Is
worked.
that better? Okay.
That was it.
It was me. It was
Yeah,
me.
It went away. Perfect. That's okay. That's
All
why.
right.
That's why I made that suggestion. We had to eliminate who it could be, and you were the only one not muted. So
I was the only one. Guilty as
could
charged.
you send me a list of all the speakers you have scheduled so I can schedule some?
yeah, and I actually scheduled into September now, which is very
Yeah.
exciting. And
Okay.
yeah, I got plenty. Anyone who'd like to invite someone to speak, I'm always looking. And if you have friends who are speakers, most of us do as speakers.
Okay.
Please let them know. I'm always looking for more speakers, and I think this is a great club for a speaker. That's why I joined it. Most Rotary clubs want you to commit to a weekly meeting. You have to be there. We like it if you're here, and we try to be here every week, but it's not as rigid as most of the other clubs, and that helps a lot with people like us that are traveling and don't really know from one week to the next where we're going to be at a certain day and time. So let me think if there's anything that I need to announce. I think we covered everything last week at the installation that needed to be covered.
Howard,
Yes.
Lori Kreider has joined in. She's with the Dallas Uptown, and she's quite a supporter of the suicide prevention part of it.
Oh, she'll like
Hello,
tonight's
everybody.
meeting because a speaker is going to be talking on that topic.
That's why.
Oh,
That's why I told her.
Oh, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things I did with the Downtown Dallas Rotary, they're sponsoring a school in Africa, and I gave them permission to use my online learning system in that school to help these kids so they can graduate and go on to college. So I gave them my program as a gift on behalf of our club, not as an individual, but as because, each of us, at the end of the year, we have to show what the club is doing for Rotary. And I thought I'd make that something the club did. Even though I did it, it doesn't really matter to me. We're all in it together. I also volunteered. They're doing a auction, I think in October or November, to raise money also for the school. And I offered to give one of my 4-hour reading programs as a gift to, that's my sister. It's my birthday. She's trying to call me. It's a gift from our club, and whatever people donate to get me to speak, I'll donate my 4 hours. And I spoke to Linda about doing that with our club as a fundraiser, and we could let the other clubs in the district know that we're doing that, and I'll donate any monies that we get from the other clubs for me to speak to our club's treasury for things that we want to do as a group as well. So that was something I did want to mention. And does anyone have an objection to that? I don't know if you would, but I think I'm supposed to ask. So
Well, if they do have an objection, they have to come up with another project.
okay, I still think it should go. They should
think
hear. It should
it's
just.
fine.
I'm trying to be a good president, not make autocratic decisions and allow the group to have input on stuff. I think that's the right way to do it. So maybe we should just make a motion. Is what I
I
propose.
move that we accept Howard Berg's suggestion on a raffle for one of his educational programs.
Great. Okay. Excellent.
Second?
Thank you.
I second.
Thank
Okay.
you. Perfect. I think that's the right way to do it. This way, I mean, we had a problem. I'm not going to mention names with somebody who didn't want to work with the club, but wanted to run the club like a fiefdom, and I don't want to be that. That's not how I am, and I don't want to run it like a fiefdom. I'm really here to serve and not, be the emperor of Rotary. That's not my interest.
We appreciate you, Howard.
Thank
Howard,
you.
you still
Okay.
need to call for a vote on, just procedurally.
Yeah.
Just say if everybody's okay, you just ask for opposed, and then we'll do it by
Okay,
acclamation.
thank you. Because I'm trying to learn. That's what I asked Rick and Linda, and they ran the club already, and I haven't. And the person who was supposed to be president quit before they took office, and you're supposed to go for training to be president, and I didn't have time because it was too late. So I took over at the last minute, so I don't have the training the other presidents have had, and they had it. So I'm asking for their input so I know what I'm doing and I don't make a mistake. Okay, well, with that in mind,
On-job training.
thank you. Is it okay with everyone now if I introduce our speaker? Is there
Yes.
anyone? Perfect. Okay, then that's what I'm going to do. This is Ann. Ann is our speaker. Ann speaks on, I believe it's suicide prevention, and particularly in youths. It's one of her passions, and she's a professional speaker. She does this around the country. If you have a group or an organization that would like to have her come in as a speaker, she's donated her time tonight, but I'm sure she'd like to get paid sometimes for her work as well. And so that's something, if you know somebody who would like to have her as a speaker, please let her know. And I'm going to make you the presenter. We see your slides are on the screen. I'm going to mute myself so I'm not making noise while you talk. And you have about 30 minutes. It's about 5 to 6. So you say about 6:25 roughly. If you run 2 minutes over, we're not going to ring a bell and throw you out. Okay?
Gotcha.
And make your mic as loud as you can so we can hear you.
All right.
And that's it. Thank you, Ann.
Okay, input is maximum. Can y'all hear me? Raise your hand if you can.
Yes.
Okay. All right. My first name is actually Ann Moss. It's a double name. And I'm sorry I have this hushed sounding voice. I had a really loud voice, but I had radiation for a brain tumor last year, and that's why my voice doesn't sound as loud. Hopefully it'll come back, but we don't know. So in the meantime, I'm still a professional speaker, thank God for microphones. I also want to say that Rotary has been very good to me, and I feel like you guys deserve for me to get back to you. Because Rotary let me in on this topic when nobody else would. And I will forever be in Rotary's good graces for that reason. So I am an executive director of Beacon Tree Foundation, Advocates for Youth Mental Health. And our mission is to be an advocate for the families whose children have mental health challenges by providing education, access to care, and funding for care. And one of the funding things we do is basically help pay for psychological evaluations not covered by insurance or Medicaid. And these referrals are usually from another nonprofit like Child Savers, the foster care system, or our local community service board. The organization was started in 2008 by Tom and Diana Leahy. I took over as president 2 years ago and am now executive director. And now I want to introduce you to my son, Charles, that handsome man on the left in the purple shirt. And when he was in high school, he was the funniest, most popular kid in school. And he's the reason I joined Beacon Tree back in 2010. Because as funny and as popular as he was, things weren't adding up. And I suspected some type of mental health challenge. So the funniest and most popular kid in school suffered from depression, became addicted to heroin, and he died 3 years ago. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story of how that happened. So it's not long after that previous picture on the homecoming court that my son's drug and alcohol use started to escalate. And at one point, it got so bad that we actually kidnapped our son out of his bed and took him to a wilderness program to the tune of $32,000. $200 of that was covered by insurance. But that's what you do when you're desperate. And you don't do that because you caught your kid with a beer and a joint. You really do it because their cavalier attitude and their activities are so alarming, you'll really do anything. So it's not long after Wilderness. He was there for about 10 weeks. He went to a therapeutic boarding school after that. And then he came back in May of 2014. And he was a high school graduate. It was ugly, but it got done. There were a lot of bumps in the road. He didn't love being sent away. But again, we had no alternatives in Virginia. The trouble was I brought my son back to the state, ranked 49th for treating childhood major depression. And I felt that the systems weren't in place. It was like that before, and it was like that afterwards. So he comes home. I try to connect him up with psychiatrists, therapists. And the trouble was we had to wait so long for those appointments. And the process was slow. And the people that we usually solicited to help were prejudiced against the very people they were trying to help, which was exceptionally disappointing. So again, his drug use started to escalate, and unknown to us, he became addicted to heroin. There was no paraphernalia around the house because he snorted it. I was completely unaware that you could even snort it. But you can smoke it, you can vape it, you can take it by pill, you can shoot up. And I didn't know that. I'd noticed some strange behavior, but we're talking about a kid who was ultimately diagnosed in Wilderness as having depression, ADHD, anxiety combined type, and we already knew about his sleep disorder, which was delayed sleep phase syndrome. He had had that sleep disorder since he was 2 years old. He was not compliant with any kind of medication. Unfortunately, you can't make somebody else take an antidepressant. He felt his way was a lot quicker. And of course it just had a lot of consequences. So in 2015, my husband and I are sitting in a restaurant and we get a call from the police. And at first, I'm elated. I think, oh my gosh, he's been arrested. This is the best news ever. Probably not the best news for most parents, but it meant he was alive. What had happened was that my son had finally admitted to being addicted to heroin and asked for help. So he went to detox, he went to rehab, and then he went to recovery house. But unfortunately, he relapsed within 24 hours. They took him back to detox, and he walked out with a friend. And for 2 weeks, we didn't know where he was. Communication was kind of spotty, so we didn't know exactly where he was, but we made some guesses, all of which were wrong. It dawned on me when they called that why would the county police be at our home in the city, or vice versa, actually? Why would the city police be at our home in the county? And they came and they met us at that restaurant. And in the back of a police car, we got the worst news of our lives, that our son had been found dead in an apartment on Monument Avenue, the most exclusive street in all of Richmond. So there's an apartment building there where there are a lot of addicts go. So we're in the back of the police car. I'm totally losing it, screaming, wailing. My husband's in the front seat doing the same. And he manages to pull himself together for a second. And he says, how did he die? And the policeman said he died by hanging. My husband is exploding in the front seat. I can't even move. Suicide was never, ever on my radar. I didn't know it, but those who suffer from addiction and depression are 6 times more likely to die by suicide. The bottom of my world completely dropped out. And I wondered, how was I going to survive this? Unfortunately, after the memorial service and after everybody left, nobody was talking about my child. And I realized part of that's because they don't know what to say, but the other part is the stigma and the shame associated with mental illness and addiction, not to mention suicide. So I made a pledge. Before we went to bed, the night we found out, after we called everybody, our parents and my older son, I said the last chapter of my life can't be the last chapter of my son's. And we got to start a new chapter. And I looked at my husband. I said, we've got to survive this. And I have to be loud, and I have to be front and center on this topic. The first thing I did is I contacted the newspaper, and I asked to do a follow-up for an article that I wrote in 2014. And I thought nobody would ever read this article. It took me from August, he died in June. I started in August, and I finally turned it in December. And it was agonizing. But when I finished, I was really proud of myself. And I realized that writing had helped me through this first part of my grief journey. The newspaper called me and let me know it was published online, and it went viral. It went all over the world because other people were reading their story and mine. And people who had been silent before suddenly found their voice. Right before it published, I started a website of my own called Emotionally Naked, and I write every single day. That site has been up. The first 2 years, we reached over 250,000 people, and over 200,000 people to date have shared the posts from that site on their Facebook pages. And if you told me 5 years ago that they would be doing that, I'd have told you were crazy. So then I stepped up my role at Beacon Tree Foundation, and I sold my thriving digital marketing business to work free. I now get a really small wage, basically poverty wages, and I make a little money speaking, public speaking. So one of our first objectives is to educate. And this past February, I was invited to the National Institute of Mental Health by the clinical director to be the first suicide loss survivor ever to speak at NIMH. And I told the group my theory in front of a bunch of researchers, which is pretty brave, but they liked what I had to say. And they're also looking into some of the points I made in my presentation. I also go into high schools, and I speak there whenever possible. And I usually get letters to follow up. And I'll be honest with you, I treasure that the most. And I'm very frank with these kids. And I talk about positive and negative coping strategies. And I tell them how I managed to find hope after my tragedy. I go into YMCAs, and that connection, thanks to Rotary. I'm invited regularly into YMCAs. I wouldn't have gotten in without that Rotary connection. And that's where I get some of my best connections. Again, something I like to do is I like to talk about coping strategies and identify negative and positive coping strategies, because a lot of people reach out for drugs and alcohol in order to manage some type of problem they're experiencing in their lives. Now I'm going to talk about programs, but I'm really going to highlight one in particular. But I think we got to look at a couple of facts before I explain that program. And one is that 90% of all teens who are suicidal have a substance use disorder. And teens using marijuana on a daily basis as medication are more likely to die from suicide. And that drug use is more likely to escalate over time. So I'm reading the New York Times one day, And because I have a website that reaches about 1,000 people a day, when there's a really good article out there, I'll get like 50 messages about that article. And I'm reading about this article about Preventure, which is personality-targeted life skills training for adolescents in a school setting. And the results were amazing. Up to 80% reduction in drug and alcohol use in schools after 4 years. Identifies over 90% of high-risk kids. I said I got to bring that program to Virginia and actually to the United States. So I contacted the Canadian researcher, and she got back to me right away, which I was shocked. And she said there's only one person in the United States that has shown any interest in this program, and her name is Dr. Jasmine Vasilova at VCU Institute of Drug and Alcohol Studies, which is literally 4 miles from my house. Dr. Jasmine Vasilova lives 2 miles from my house. I thought, boy, that means I need to do this. So I partnered with both VCU and the Virginia Recovery Foundation, a local nonprofit focused on addiction. And we had our first training this past April. So I'm going to explain exactly what Preventure is. And as I said a minute ago, it's a personality-targeted life skills training. Based on these 4 personality traits, which research has shown that is a predisposition to addiction in youth. And they are sensation-seeking, impulsiveness, hopelessness or negative thinking, and anxiety sensitivity. I also want to point out that while these traits can be troublesome traits, they are also the traits of our most decorated Olympic athletes, our most famous and loved actors, some of the most famous entrepreneurs. So it's all about channeling those traits to the positive. Because most of these kids are smart and most of them are creatively gifted. And we want to funnel those early difficulties so they'll find success and not end up dead, in jail, addicted, with broken relationships. So we held a seminar locally in December of 2017, I believe, 2016. And one school system came and they adopted it immediately. So they were the first ones in the United States, right here in Virginia, to implement the program. We were going for a grant, a big NIH grant, and we're still resubmitting that grant. It's not come through yet. So what I did last Christmas is I raised private funds. I got approval from 2 schools, and we are taking this into the schools in the fall. So it has 4 manuals that each of the kids get. So there's a workshop for each of the problem areas. And how they figure out who belongs in what area or what workshop is there's a 24-question personality test. And that will tell us whether a child is suffering from hopelessness, and they have to score a particular score in order to qualify for these classes. But the odd thing is that even though only 45% of the students qualify, if those 45% are taking these workshops, they influence the rest of the school. And the performance for the whole school goes up high-risk behavior, cutting, suicide attempts goes down, grades go up. And who doesn't want that? So these kids are slotted into 90-minute coping skills workshop, and there are 2 of them. So there are 2 of them for anxiety sensitivity. There are 2 classes for hopelessness, 2 for sensation seeking, and 2 for impulsiveness. These are 2 of the counselors from our pilot schools, and they are holding up the manuals that I delivered the other day. So we chose 2 schools, and they're kind of polar opposites. One of them is a private all-girls school, and the other is a public low-income school, kind of an alternative school. They were chosen because they were polar opposite, and we're gathering data. So this will be the first study of Preventure in the United States. And we'll be responsible for also helping shape this program for the rest of the United States. So we're doing things like creating teachers' manuals. And will we be revamping the manuals to be less Canadian and more United States? So this is the first study in the United States, as I have mentioned. Here are our partners, and I'm thrilled to have partners because in the past we've been alone. And it's just great to have VCU collecting the data and Virginia Recovery Foundation helping us get the word out and also helping us raise money. So I don't have a very long presentation today, but I did want to tell what we're looking for. Always looking for publicity and funding for the program. Always looking for speaking opportunities. And I've just written a book, so this is personal. And I'm looking for not an editor, but an agent. And I've already had some publishers contact me, but I really want to go for the agent route, and I want an agent that knows to do the marketing beforehand, because I want more people to read it, our story. My son will be a co-author, and it'll be Diary of a Broken Mind, an inside view into the wind of the soul of somebody that suffered from depression and addiction and died by suicide. And I'll include some of my son's writing so that people understand how people that suffer think. So that's basically my presentation on Preventure. I think it's a lot shorter than you expected, but most people are happy with shorter than they are longer.
I was going to say it was pretty intense. We've had a lot
It
of
is.
presentations over the past few years, and I think that was one of the most moving ones that I've heard. I don't know how everyone else felt, but it moved me a great
Thank
deal.
you.
I really kind of empathize with what you described. I was going to ask you, with the children that you work with, do you get kids coming to you from these things saying that they're troubled and it helped them, or are they looking for help, or without being tested? Do you find that that's some of what's happening?
Yes, they usually, what I figured out is that if I'm standing here and they're over there, they're not going to cross the moat. So that's why I developed some activities to get them engaged and to start talking. And that's when they start not only telling me, but talking about it within the group. And of course, I emphasize anonymity in that group. But the most amazing things with the Post-it notes, when I do that exercise, they're supposed to put one problem on a Post-it note and stick it on the wall. And when they step back and all of them look at the wall and see it completely covered, they start to move forward because all of a sudden they realize they're not alone. And then they open up. And that's when we talk about negative coping strategies and positive coping strategies. And I'm just guiding them with questions. I'm letting them make the discoveries. I'm letting them talk about it. And if somebody kind of gets out of line or says, oh, I think drinking is a great coping strategy, the rest of the group, the herd mentality, comes in and says, no, that doesn't solve a problem. Or I can ask that question. Does it solve a problem? Now, when I speak to high school students, I have a lot of video of Charles. It's all about Charles. It's all about his music, his funny channel in middle school. I tell stories about him. And for an hour, they do not move. Not one muscle. They're not pulling their phones out. They are completely engaged and absorbed. And because I'm so emotionally naked, they're ready to share. And they do. So they went up to the YMCA Leaders Club and they told him it was the best class they'd ever had. But the most shocking to me was that they said nobody had ever asked them how they were coping. So they had lost parents to suicide, cancer, overdose, brothers, sisters, friends. Some of them were stutterers. Some of them had lost a foot. One of them had lost a foot. One of them was struggling with his sexual identity. Binging, purging, cutting. I'd say about 60% of the groups that I go see have some issue. And nobody's ever talked to them about coping strategies. It's a very simple exercise I made up, but it's a winner. So whenever I can get in, I try to get in and do it.
Does anyone else have a question they'd like to ask?
No, I think it was very good. I really am impressed by it. I know, Lori, do you have any comments?
Sorry, I had myself muted there. I appreciate you telling your story. It's more common than people think. I lost my 20-year-old nephew on April 8th of 2015 to suicide, and he was not an addict, but he struggled with depression and probably other things as well, and we didn't have a clue. We were completely blindsided, but I think it's just so important that the word gets out there and that there's treatment options and that the stigma is removed from mental health issues in general. It's important to talk about it. It really does save lives. So
And
thank you.
it makes people uncomfortable. So I've had to get used to making people uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had one parent who brought her child to a presentation. She didn't know what it was about, really. And she said, when I left, I was so angry with you because I brought my child and you heard this story. She gets in the car. She's seething. How am I going to email this person and let her know how mad I am? That I deserved a warning. And her son looked at her and said, Mom, there's something I need to tell you. I've had thoughts of suicide. And just last week, I wanted to kill myself. So when she reached out to me, she wasn't mad anymore. She was thankful. Mm-hmm. And that's why I do what I do. And I will never quit, ever.
I would congratulate you. I know when I was in school, I was bullied. I grew up in a very violent neighborhood, East New York, a lot of gangs. And if you weren't in a gang, you got beat up a lot. I'm talking bats, being hit with bats, have knives to your throat, to have a gang of kids surround you that are heavily armed and want to kill you, and you have to try to get away or they'll kill you. And I can't say it happened once. It happened to me over 100 times growing up. So
Wow.
I can understand that feeling of helplessness. I was given a choice when I got out of high school at 17. I said it was either drop out of school or finish, because I couldn't live like that anymore. And my mother gave me the choice of going to Brooklyn College, which was free, and buying me a new car at 17, or going upstate to Binghamton, which was like 40 below zero, living on a campus and having no car. And most 17-year-olds would have picked the car. I went upstate. I was more interested in getting away from that environment than having a car. So I can understand that state your son was in, because it isn't a very pleasant one. And back then there was nobody you really could talk to. So I think you're doing a really good job with what you're doing. I kind of related a lot to your story. I didn't have drug problems, but I had depression. It's depressing to get beat up every day.
It is very depressing. That's a trauma. That's a childhood trauma.
You couldn't do anything to protect yourself because they were heavily armed, and there were literally 1,200 kids in that gang. So if you tried to hurt anybody, they kill you. I mean, people got killed. It was that bad, and there was nothing you could do. You just got beat up, and you hoped that you survived it, because that was the only option was there.
Gosh.
So yeah, I can relate to what you were talking about, and I think you're doing a great thing. It's something that more people need to be doing in this country, because having lived through it, I relate to your story.
I went to jail this morning and spoke to inmates, and I asked them to send me their stories. So they'll be featured on my blog. I have a feeling I'm going to get a lot of them. Even though they're not children, some of them are under 21, but on Emotionally Naked, I just want to talk about it from every angle possible.
How are you doing with your tumor? Is the treatment helping you?
I only had one. I had to have one. It's a benign tumor,
It helps.
but it has wreaked a lot of havoc since 1999. And it's dead, so that's the good news. So I'm struggling with the speech, swallow, and then a couple other things. And it may come back, it may not. We're just only time will tell. And I just do what I need to do and forge ahead, because I got a mission and nothing's getting in the way.
Well, I just want to say I really wish you success with that, and it takes a lot of courage to deal with that kind of a physical challenge and take on that emotional burden at the same time, because I know if you're working with kids like that, it takes something out of you. I mean, no matter how positive you are, it
does.
It does. There's no way it doesn't. So to have that kind of a physical challenge in your life and still choose to serve like that, that's a very noble soul. So I think I would say thank you for what you're doing, and I hope you'll consider joining our group. It's a really nice group of people. And
it is a good group of people who I met so far. It's really nice.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of Rotary presentations, and there's one group in particular here that's been very supportive. So at least once or twice a year I go back and, update them on what we're doing.
Where is Midlothian located?
Midlothian is in Virginia.
I know, but what's another major town?
Richmond.
Richmond, okay.
I'm actually live in Richmond now.
Okay, because we go to Williamsburg usually once a year.
Oh, that's just an hour away.
Yeah. So
Cool. I need to get down there and speak to some of the Rotary groups in Williamsburg. But I'm going to take Howard's idea. I need that link, but I would like to speak to some of the groups in New York. I'm going up there for a conference in September.
Go to Rotary
like-
International, and
Okay.
and it has locate a club. Find a club in New York, and go to their
Okay.
website, and on the website it'll tell you what district that club is in. You need the district. Once you know
Okay.
the district, then you go to Google and you go club run. Like our club is 5810, District 5810. So I'll go club runner, District 5810. And then it'll
Okay.
bring up all of the club. There'll be a link. It'll bring up the club homepage for that district. And then on that page, there'll be a list of all the clubs in that district. And,
Okay.
And it'll give you the direct access to the president of each club to send
Okay.
an email. But don't do more than 5 a day because
No.
it doesn't allow like spam. So if it'll let you go with 5. So every day do 5 and 5 and 5 and 5, and in, a week or two you get the whole thing done, and let them know, and that way you can target an area where you're going, and I think what you have is a very important message, and I'm sure a lot of clubs would welcome it, but they don't know. It's kind of up to you to get the word out.
Right. And that's what I've done here, is that I went to a site, and it was so long ago, and I found a bunch of Rotary clubs, and I just emailed them, and pretty much 85% of them got back with me.
Yeah, they're good like that. They are. Another thing is, if you're part of Rotary, they have funds. They
Yeah.
do fun projects, especially things for kids. There's 4 pillars in Rotary, and one of them is education, and you might be able to get some kind of a Rotary grant as well.
Yeah, we looked into those. Right now, I'm kind of letting VCU be the captain of that ship
Okay, that makes sense.
because we don't have a very big ship.
Well, that makes sense, but that's just something to look at.
Yeah, we did look at them.
Good.
And I've got several contacts at Yorktown and also at the Heritage Triangle Club. Historic Triangle in Williamsburg is a really good club. And James County City or James City County is a really good club. We go to there. They know us when we show up.
Okay. Williamsburg.
Yeah, Linda knows everybody in Rotary around the world. Just so you know, she's like a power Rotarian. She
Awesome.
I'm the president, but I kind of listen to what she tells me.
Well, not many people do.
she knows what she's doing, and I respect that. If somebody knows more than you, you let them tell you what you need to know. You don't have to be in charge of everything. So I listen to her. And Rick was also past president. I listen to him. But, I mean, even Rick would probably agree. Linda's kind of like networked in to Rotary on a level that's very rare. She knows all the leaders and the presidents, and she travels around the world going to Rotary. So if you ever need someone in Rotary to help you, she's the person to talk to.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Howard.
It's true. It's true. You know it's true.
Well, we're getting ready to go to Zone Institute in about 4 weeks, I guess. And so anyway, we'll be visiting Rotary clubs around too.
Good for
That's in
you.
Boise, Idaho.
Does anyone else have any questions before we close our meeting with the 4-way test? Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say or comment, or I'll give you a moment. Anyone? Okay, then I'll close the meeting then with our 4-way test of the things we say and say and do. First, is it the truth?
The truth.
Is it
Second,
all concern?
concern.
Third,
Third, will it build good
friendships?
friendships?
And fourth,
And fourth, will it be beneficial to all
concerned?
concerned?
And then we have our 5th one in our club, which is, will it be fun? Thank you, Ann. We appreciate
Thank you.
It's very, I was really moved. I think partly because I related so much to your story on a personal level, but beyond that, it was just so emotional. It's hard to hear your story and not be moved. So thank you.
Thank you. I
for
appreciate
doing
that.
It's true. It's true. I think everyone felt it. I think everyone. I mean, as you continued with the story, it was like, oh my goodness, what an intense story. And what you're doing is really important. So thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your having me, and I appreciate you putting up a notice on e-speakers because I snagged that spot right away.
I appreciate. Again, please let other speakers know. We were always looking
I
for
will.
people, and we welcome speakers, and we would welcome you as a member as well. Again, thank
Okay.
you, and I guess that's it for tonight. Have a happy birthday.
Yeah,
You have a happy birthday.
we sang happy birthday to him
Yeah,
last
it's
week.
okay. I don't want to go crazy. Yeah.
You don't want to hear me sing it right
No,
now.
it's okay. I'm fine with that. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and we'll meet again next week. Take care.
Okay,
All
you
right,
close
thank
the
you.
meeting, Howard.
Thank you.
Bye.
Stop record and close the meeting.
Yes, I'm looking for a leave meeting, and
Welcome.
there you go.